Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. The first item tonight is a presentation. I'd like to invite Mr. Matthew Danchuk and Ms. Linda Delpart from the Tri-Cities Chamber of Commerce and Polaris Employment Society to come forward to speak about the 10 by 10 challenge.
Greetings, Mayor Stewart and Council. I realize there's a hockey game going on tonight, so I'm going to be quick. My name is Matthew Danchuk, and I'm the marketing coordinator for the 10 by 10 challenge from the Tri-Cities Chamber of Commerce. We'd like to give you a brief update on the 10 by 10 challenge in response, which was a response to the provincial challenge to increase employment of persons with disabilities by 10% in 2010. Beginning in the fall of 2008, the Tri-Cities 10 by 10 challenge has been advocating the business case for hiring people with disabilities in our community. It is a partnership with the Tri-Cities Chamber of Commerce, Douglas College, and Polaris Employment Service Societies. We are resourced for 2010 with renewed funding from the Vancouver Foundation. We've been promoting a culture of inclusion known as disability confidence, an approach to seeing disability as a business case. With buying power of over $25 billion in Canada, people with disabilities and their families represent a virtually untapped market that is rapidly growing as the population ages. To increase employment, our focus has primarily been on awareness raising, from creating marketing material that has been seen over 26,000 times to hosting workshops and networking with the local business community. We've made hundreds of connections with employers and have worked with support agencies in helping them to create jobs locally. Workshops which we've hosted for the business community include the business case for employing persons with disabilities with Susan Scott Parker, Chief Executive of the UK Employers Forum on Disability, mental health in the workplace, and welcoming customers with disabilities. More workshops and events are being planned for this year, aimed at connecting directly with businesses and human resource decision makers, and ending with a special event to recognize the International Day of Persons with Disabilities on December 3rd, 2010. Local employers also have a new resource available to them to explore the business case for hiring people with disabilities with the recent launch of the Tri-Cities 10 by 10 website. Information about the website is on the handout provided to Council. The Tri-Cities Chamber of Commerce and the 10 by 10 is also supporting the City of Coquitlam's Accessibility Awards, participating on the nominations committee to recognize the efforts of individuals, businesses, governments, or nonprofit organizations that improved accessibility and reduced barriers for people with disabilities who live, work, and play in Coquitlam. I would like to introduce Linda Delpart, Executive Director of Polaris Employment Service Society, who first addressed the City Council on January 21st, 2008, regarding the 10 by 10 challenge. It's a little warm up here with all the lights. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Matthew. Welcome, Linda.
Hi there. January 2008 feels like a long time ago. In that time frame, since that first presentation here, in working on the 10 by 10 challenge, businesses have been telling us that they have a business case in learning more about serving customers with disabilities. And that maybe wasn't what we expected. For example, hotels that bid on business for American tour companies are required to look at the Americans with Disabilities Act. If they want to bid on that business, they have to learn more. We have people who are web designers who come and said that they're looking for information how to make their web e-commerce site that they're working on for someone else more accessible. People with visual loss, they're learning something. We've been looking at retail stores who are describing how they're meeting the needs of customers with disabilities. So business, in a way, came back to us saying it's a business case. So that was an unexpected turn of events. And at every Tri-Cities Chamber, and I know many of you are at various events with the Chamber, you see marketing materials, you see in their membership directory a full page this year that talks about the 10 by 10. So the message is there. The organizations the local agencies that assist in working with people with disabilities. They're there as well, and there's a great networking that's going on at the morning breakfast meetings. A number of businesses are owned by people with disabilities. They're coming forward and talking to us. Or people already employed are saying, hey, I'm glad that this is now on everyone's agenda, that the community is celebrating disability. And certainly the Paralympics, again, opened that door or echoed that message. When I first came to council, one of the things in the package was talking about a number of jobs as a goal. And I think what's happened over the 2 years is that the advisory committee and the agencies have said that isn't how we want to define success. That by December we'll be looking at a number of companies that have become disability confident and looking at job matches that have been successful for over 6 months. And so we want to represent the number of business people, citizens who've come forward to learn more about disability confidence. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Disability confidence is certainly one of those big issues that I'm so pleased to see the Chamber of Commerce leading on, and I appreciate it very much. On behalf of Council, thanks so much for coming out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Clerk.
Item 2, our second presentation. I'd like to invite Mr. John Wolf and Ms. Joanne Granick from the Sheriff Family and Community Services Society to come forward and give an update on services and future plans.
However, we're not going to let you do that quite yet. My apologies to Matthew and Linda, we didn't have flowers for you. Joanne Granick is appearing before us tonight for her last time in the current capacity, probably not the last time before us, but certainly the last time in her current capacity. Joanne's been involved with SHARE for ages. And so on behalf of Council, I get the opportunity tonight to acknowledge you on behalf of us all. Joanne has been involved in a number of initiatives with Share Family and Community Services and is focused on changing the way the social services sector does business with one another and with supporters and funders. Joanne has worked to bring the organization closer to the community, and she's done so with outstanding success. Joanne is a diplomat, but not too much so. She's forceful, but she's not too much so. And she's really nice, but she's not too much so. And I'm sure that I'm not the only one here who will say that this community will truly miss Joanne as she moves on to another stage of her life, another chapter of her life. And on behalf of the City of Coquitlam and all of City Council, I'd like to thank you for your contributions to our community and wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors. And as I'm walking with a cane tonight, I wonder if I get Councillor Reid and Councillor Robinson to get up, and we've got 2 small gifts for Joanne before she gets to speak, so we can get her all embarrassed before she takes the microphone.
You take the box, I don't know what you put in it.
Honest, I didn't know. I did not know. And I think you were really nice.
That's not too much.
But not too much.
Most people don't know me to be speechless. So I'm going to go back to the prepared script. Thank you all very much.
Good, you have 5
really
minutes.
Appreciate it. I remembered that.
Go right ahead.
I don't know if we can do this here. Can I just stand over here? I need to be able to.
Well, that's fine. Just pull the microphone to point it at you.
There we go.
Okay.
Okay. It actually did throw me a bit, so we'll see how well I can pull this off quickly because I am aware of the time limit. Thank you very much for the time. I'd like to tell you a story. And the story is one of love, it's one of hope, and it's one of what can happen when we have resources available to help us meet challenges. So I want to tell you the story about Julia. When Julia first came to Chair, she was 3.5 years old. She came with her parents. Julia has autism spectrum disorder. And the way that her disorder is playing out is that Julia had no coordinated movement. She had no what we would call intentional communication, which meant she couldn't do eye contact with her family. When her mom and dad smiled at her, she didn't smile back. When they put their hand out, she didn't reach for it. When they threw her a kiss, she didn't throw one back. And so they came to share and they asked for some help. Part of what they wanted to know was how well they could help Julia get stronger and better in communicating what she needs. They were very concerned that she might need things that when she cried, they had no idea what it was she was needing. And so they began to work with Holly. And Holly worked with them and assessed Julia and came up with a plan for how to help Julia learn the pathways to intentional communication. So when Julia had something to let her parents know, she would be able to do that. And so they used a prop, and I have a bell to indicate the prop. And so what happened was, Holly, who was a speech pathologist, began working with Mom and Dad. They would sit at the family kitchen table. Holly would take the bell, she'd hit the bell, she'd hand it over to Mom, Mom would hit the bell, and Holly would go, hooray, and clap. And then they'd pass it to Dad, and Dad would hit the bell, and they would say, hooray, and clap. And then they would put it in front of Julia. And Julia sat in her chair, moving her arms around, but no coordinated or intentional movement. And so this went on. This went on for weeks. This went on for probably 25 minutes at a time, each time that Holly came to the home. And they continued on with this bell, and this bell was just going on for that 20 minutes, putting it in front, following it up with hooray, putting it back in front of Julia, and nothing. And on they went. And so then Holly went back, and she hit it. Mom and Dad went hooray, put it in front of Mom, hit it. Hooray, put it in front of Dad. Dad hit it, everybody went hooray, and they put it in front of Julia, and she flung it and screamed, no! And everybody was quite shocked. This was the first time in the mom's and dad's experience that that child had communicated something. Now I want to step outside of this family for just a minute and remind you that at SHARE we do many services for families and children, and one of the services we do is we provide addiction services. And we see lots of kids in our program, and we see them with their parents. And I can tell you that there are parents who are sitting in the waiting room who, when they get into the counseling room with the counselor, sometimes what they say to that counselor is, if that kid says no to me one more time, I don't know that I can be responsible for how I'm going to respond, because I just want to take him and put him up against the wall. He says no to everything I ask. So in our addiction services program, we often have families who come asking for help so that they can hear their kids say yes. In our speech and language program, we had a family who heard their child say no, and they were moved to tears, and they celebrated. Because part of what happened in that moment is they knew in that moment that they could feel confident, that they would one day know that Julia felt the love of her parents and would be able to tell them that. And there was a good chance that Julia would be able to express her love to her mom and dad. Speech and language therapy for young kids is one of several services. We have 3 different therapies, and we have some mental health services and family support. And we're doing these services in cooperation with and integrating with Simon Fraser Society for Community Living. I'm telling you the story tonight, number one, to remind you that there are many other services we deliver besides for Food Bank, which I know a lot of people know about, but also to let you know that part of our vision for the future is to build a children's center in the Tri-Cities in which we will place these services that I'm describing and others that have no place right now. We have families traveling far and wide across the Lower Mainland seeking services, and we would like them to have a place in the Tri-Cities where services are located and access is easy. So that's my story, and I'll now hand it over to John.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. I don't think my story will be nearly as riveting, but I would just like to give you a brief update on some of the transition and changes. As you mentioned earlier, Joanne is leaving after many years of dedicated service. And throughout our history at SHARE, which is a 36-year history, we've always been guided by a vision and values. And that was the case during the time of Joanne's leadership. And we will continue to be guided by our vision and values as we move forward. So as we go through the change and transition, it's a time to acknowledge and celebrate the past and look forward to the challenges of the future. We know that we will continue to have challenges on an ongoing basis That's just a reality we deal with, but we are committed to providing the services that support individuals and families in our communities, and we really are so fortunate to have such supportive communities. You'll see in the report that Joanne had handed out that despite tough economic times last year, our support grew. The community stood up and supported us, and I think we should all be very, very proud to live in a community with such caring people. So in closing, I'd just like to once again thank all of you for your continued support of SHARE, and I look forward to coming back after we finish the selection process, which we're right in the middle of, and introducing a new CEO to you in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And on behalf of all of Council, thank you for the work you do. We've got hundreds of volunteers that do it with you, and to all of those, we applaud you. Thank you.
Yeah.
And my apologies, John, we didn't have any flowers for you.
Thanks for having them for me.
Mr. Clerk.
Item 3 concerns the minutes of the regular council meeting held Monday, April 19th. The recommendation is to approve those minutes.
Moved by Councillor Lynch, seconded by Councillor Reamer. Councillor Robinson has a comment.
I do, actually, and I love the page 18. Actually, page 17 is the notice of motion smoking bylaw that I moved, and it says here that it was carried unanimously, and I was so thrilled to see that in the minutes, but I don't think it was accurate.
Actually, the notice of motion was that the following notice of motion be deferred pending the results, which was carried unanimously.
Oh, my apologies. I misread it.
Well, it was a small victory.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other comments on the minutes? Seeing none. Motion is to approve. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 4 is the minutes of the Land Use and Economic Development Standing Committee meeting of Monday, April 26th. The recommendation is to receive those minutes.
Moved by Councillor Reamer, seconded by Councillor Lynch. Councillor Sikora has a comment.
Yeah, Mayor, I've got a sore throat, so I wonder after this item if I can bring my 2 notice of motions forward, because I don't know what I'll be able to last night if this stays any length of time. So I'd like to ask the council members if it's permissible to bring my 2 notice of motions forward.
Well, I'm not even going to be able to make it for that far. I'm sorry. If we, can I call a 2-minute recess here, please? We've got our normal procedure is we have an acting mayor that rotates through the schedule, and right now it's Councillor Reamer. I'm going to try and take her seat, but I don't know whether that's going to work.
Okay.
Madam
Mr.
Chair.
Clerk.
Thank you. We'll call the meeting back to order. Just if we can dispose of the motion to receive and then consider Councillor Sikora's request after that.
All right. So there has been a mover and a seconder. All in favor of receiving the minutes? Opposed? Carries. Thank you.
Councillor Sikora has requested that we bring items 13 and 14 forward for immediate consideration, and he asks the permission of council to, or an indication from council that that is acceptable.
All right. Is there a seconder for that? Okay. All in favor? Any discussion? Opposed? Carries. Thank you.
So if we move forward into the agenda, I'll just flip through the slides quickly. The first notice of motion concerns the town hall meeting format. The recommendations that council give consideration to the following notice of motion presented by Councillor Sikora and seconded by Councillor McDonnell at the April 19th meeting. The motion is that the forthcoming town hall meeting to take place on June 5th be revived from what has guided previous events. More specifically, that the meeting not proceed according to the existing public hearing type format, that all members of council are permitted to actively engage with members of the public in response to the question or issue being raised, and that each member of council be provided with a microphone for the above purpose. It has been moved and seconded, so it is open for discussion.
Okay, thank you. Discussion?
Pardon me, Madam Chair. Councillor Sikora has the prerogative to speak first.
Yeah. Councillor Sikora.
Yeah, thank you very much. Why this notice of motion is very simple. The fact is, for the last 3 years, we've had a town hall meeting. I had to bring a notice of motion to even have a town hall meeting. Otherwise, it just wasn't going to happen. And I noticed that with my notice of motions that we have scheduled 2 town hall meetings for this year. However, the fact is that, you know what, I've had many, many complaints from the people that's run like a public hearing. And what bothers me is the fact is Mayor Wilson was a mayor. She ran it like a town hall meeting. And our present mayor, who was a council member then, objected on the way she ran the meeting, as I did and a few other council members. Lo and behold, the last council meeting was run the same way by our present mayor. And there's many, many people that have come to the public, to the town hall meeting, are saying, what a joke. That is not a town hall meeting, because therefore we had only the mayor speak and the council members were not allowed to speak. And if somebody in the crowd would want to ask me a question, well, I could not answer, or any other council member. I feel that every council member has got a right to reply to any questions asked to them, or anything they may want to say and have a mic in front of them. And the fact is that also, instead of having written questions, that the people have come to the mic, and we should have 2 mics on the floor, and also at the same time that they be able to ask a question of whoever they wish to ask a question. I think it would only be fair, and a council member can reply per se, and it'd be run much better rather than saying, well, we'll take everybody's comments they're making, we'll get back to them. Well, for 2 years in a row, nobody got back to anybody. So it was a sham the way it's been run. So I think a real town hall meeting, and I'd hope that it's advertised in the paper, not a picture of a sky train coming to Coquitlam. You know, some flowery and some, but the fact is that that the council members are going to be there with the mayor. We'll listen to your comments. Please tell us what your likes are and dislikes about the city. Do you like your taxes going up every year? The way they've been going? You like the solid waste contractors that have been approved? Many, many other things. You like our parks? You don't like our parks? What is the reason why you don't like our parks? How can we improve our communication to the residents, and a few other things, instead of all these flowery things that may happen in Coquitlam 5 or 10 years from now? So this is the reason why this notice of motion is written the way it's written. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers on this item? I'm just going to say a few words about it. I have absolutely no problem with this. My only concern, however, is that if we're there to listen to our citizens, and each one of the 9 of us that will be then would like to speak, I see that it could possibly take a lot longer than just the time that we've allotted for the town hall meeting. So that's my only concern with that, is that perhaps we might want to schedule a slightly longer time frame. Councillor Lynch.
No, I think this is a good idea. I think the idea of each council member being able to speak isn't a huge change from what happened last time. I remember having the opportunity to speak on different issues. I think the big difference is in the previous, the questions were directed through the mayor. And I think what Councillor Sikora is asking is that the questions can be directed to a specific councillor. And I think that's okay. I'm a little concerned about the fact not to proceed according to public hearing type format. I would like to make sure that we have the opportunity to have all the residents who show up who want to speak to ask questions. We will have to maybe have some type of a restriction or time limit on somebody so they're not standing there for 20 minutes asking different questions of different councillors. So I think there has to be some guidelines that may be similar in the public format, and we do have restrictions on time limits for public hearing, but overall I think this is a fine process.
Councillor Sikora?
The fact is that, we've already had comments by this council members and the mayor that brought it up. Well, we may not be able to have the public town hall meeting for 4 hours because there's something happening in Coquitlam Center, in the park. So we shouldn't start the town hall meeting till 11. Well, you know what? May not start till 12. This is a town hall meeting for the public that should have been in March. It wasn't March because we negotiated with Victoria whether we should have election in this city or not. What a joke that was. The fact is, of course, we should have election in this city. We had a vacancy. We need to elect somebody in their place. Why skirt around? And we're talking $200,000 cost and $250,000, but getting away from it is the fact is change it to a Saturday in May, the last Saturday in May. But have it to 4 hours. Don't start cutting down to 3 hours and 2 hours and so on. It doesn't have to be on June the 5th or 4th. It can be the week before. But don't give me this business that, we may not be able to start it till 11 or later because we're having something in the Coquitlam Center Park. And that's what I have to say.
Thank you. Just a quick question to staff. We did have some challenge finding a date for this, did we not?
We did. The date of the by-election did change, but primarily the reason it's on the last weekend in May is that it conflicts with FCM, so several members of council would not be present to attend the town hall meeting.
Right,
so that was the primary conflict at that time.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Stewart.
Thank you very much. Council decides how these meetings are run. Council chose that format. If council changes the format, that's fine. I hope that we do get through all of the speakers. I suspect that the council right now is looking at a 4-hour meeting, a 4-hour town hall meeting, starting at 11 because of another conflicting event. So this is an effort by council to hear from the public. I heard from every single member of council that they're looking forward to this. And I think that the attempts to disparage that, council does set policy. As Councillor Sikora knows, he's been on council for a couple of decades. Council sets those policies. And if council votes tonight to put a microphone in front of everybody and to have questions directly to city council members, then that's fine. That's how it will go. We'll need more than 4 hours, though. We'll probably have to make it 6 hours or longer because we know how these meetings go. So really, it's up to council how these meetings run. So I would urge council members to make a decision, and whatever we do, that's how the chair will run it. Perhaps the council wants to decide that a different council member chairs the town hall meeting, and that's fine too. It's entirely up to council.
Thank you, Mayor Stewart. Councillor, that's fine. Thank you. Councillor Reid.
The last town hall meeting we had, I remember speaking. I remember most of us speaking. Yeah. I don't think people naturally addressed their questions to us, but I remember that we all spoke on it because I remember specifically telling someone something that they had very wrong. Oh, yes, I do remember doing that. I think this is great. We should all have a microphone and we can speak when we want to speak, and I think as long as we're not trying to be little divas and little wonderful heroes, that we should just move right along. And I think we're all big boys and girls here, and we should realize that everybody's time should be respected. And I think we're more than capable of running a good town hall meeting. So I don't see any of these problems, and I'm looking forward to hearing from the public, like I'm sure everybody else is. So call a question, please.
Thank you very much. Seeing no speakers, all those in favor of opposed, carries unanimously. Thank you.
Item 14, the second notice of motion, concerns the HST petition, and the recommendation is that Council give consideration to the following notice of motion presented by Councillor Sikora and seconded by Councillor Robinson at the April 19th regular Council meeting. Be it resolved that for the good of the residents and voters of the City of Coquitlam and their right to a democratic process, Coquitlam Council provide a space in the second floor lobby area of City Hall so that Coquitlam residents will be able to register their opposition to the HST by signing a petition to that effect, and that this space be staffed by volunteers with a sign to be posted indicating the hours of operation.
Thank you. Councillor Sikora.
I'm going to leave my colleagues to debate it first. Okay, Chair?
Okay, thank you. Councillor Reid?
Thank you. Well, I was away when this notice of motion came forward. It's amazing all the things that go on when I'm out of town, what you guys get up to, I'll tell you. And not only that, when I came back, I found out that it had already been legislated and it's a done deal. So this seems to be coming a little late in the process, but however, I have had calls from a lot of people saying that they wish to have been able to get in and express their displeasure on this HST initiative. The reason I'm going to support having civic buildings, whether it be City Hall, and if it was going to be City Hall, it would be downstairs, as far as I'm concerned, right off the parking lot, which would be easy for someone to set up and, you know, have people come in and out quickly, or any other buildings if someone wanted to do that. I don't know. I just feel that it can't be disruptive to staff and in the ordinary course of business. These buildings are civic facilities. It's the taxpayers that, along with all of us, that own these facilities. And I think it's very important on this issue alone. I will support Councillor Sikora's notice of motion because I feel it's sort of one of these issues that comes along once in a decade or so that people just feel the need to get out and say what they have to say, and they don't have the proper form with which to do so. So I am not having a problem supporting this. I believe that the decision's been made and it's gone through, and no matter what happens, it's there for the next few years with us. But if people feel that this has affected their lives, and to some people in this community, I know it has, especially single parents with kids, and that breaks my heart because I know how hard that is. So I am going to support this. And I hope that because it's been passed, that it doesn't stop everyone from coming forth and giving their opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Asmundson.
Thank you very much. To Mr. Gilbert, we have procedures about this type of activity. Would we need to waive procedure for this to go through, for this item?
Thank you. Through the chair, not so much procedure as policy, but by approval of this motion, it would be considered to be a waiving of that policy in this instance.
It would be what?
A waiving of that policy in this instance.
By approving the motion.
By approving the motion, there would not be a requirement for receiving direction of council through the approval of this motion.
My interest, I'm going to support this, but I think this is such unique, the HST and the anger and the swell up, that I'll support it on this month for waiving the procedure on this item, because there's a great sense of angst and upset, and I agree with Councillor Reid that this has gone through both levels of government. It's a done deal, but the petition is a good way for people to voice their concerns and anger on this issue. And so I see nothing wrong with having a table set up here for people to man, come in if people want to come to the City Hall and sign it on this issue, because this is something that is quite out of the ordinary, and I haven't seen this type of firestorm on an issue in the province of British Columbia in quite some time. So on this issue, I'd be willing to move and support Councillor Sikora's motion on this, but realizing it to be just on this item, not on future other issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. For me, the issue is about civic engagement, and at least that's the value. I don't know if that's the issue. The issue is about the HST, but it's about civic engagement. And we've certainly all sat around and bemoaned the fact that people aren't engaged, and how do we get people engaged? And lo and behold, we have before us many of our citizens who are looking for ways to get engaged. And I think that as the most accessible form of government, I think we do have a role to play in supporting people's opportunity to engage in political action of some sort. So that's why I seconded it, because I think that's a real important statement that we get to make. I've been warned, though, cautioned, maybe warned is too strong a word, but cautioned that we are still beholden to the Liberal government for many things, like the Evergreen Line and homeless shelter and all of that. And I would certainly hope and expect to not get punished by any government because of our desire to support our residents in helping them have their voices be heard. And so I would expect to not be shamed or told that it's a bad thing to open up our buildings to allow people to have a place where they can say their piece. So I'm looking forward to seeing this go through. I also actually just wanted to add that I'm interested in actually making an amendment to broaden it beyond City Hall, because the truth is a lot of us, you know, I'm here at City Hall far more than I ever expected I ever would be, but most citizens don't come to City Hall, and I would actually like to make this available to any of our civic buildings. So if the volunteers who are petitioning have identified other buildings that they would like to be at, I think that we ought to consider that as well, so that they could have as much our citizens could have as much access as possible.
Okay, so motion to amend by Councillor Robinson and seconded by Councillor Reid. So on the amendment, are there any speakers? Councillor Lynch.
Well, that was actually one of the issues I was going to raise. I was thinking about this, and I was saying, apparently you have to gain the 10% in each riding, and there is, of course, more than one riding in Coquitlam. So if we were really intent on providing our citizens with the opportunity to register and put their name on a signature, then we would need to identify an area in each one of the ridings to provide this service to every resident. So I think we need to give that some more consideration. I'm in favor of the amendment because it was something I was considering. However, prior to that, I was going to ask the question of the city clerk if he had anticipated this question and had investigated perhaps what other buildings we may be able to make some space available so that, and I'm thinking it's 3 ridings.
Mr. Clerk.
I wish I had. I had not undertaken that analysis, but we can certainly look into it. The same policy parameters and other parameters apply, but I think we can work with facilities staff and make the appropriate arrangements, given if that is the direction of council.
And so then following up on that, I'd be guessing then that in the background that you gave us, we're talking about that if the city does provide space, then they will be considered to have made a contribution in support of the initiative.
Correct.
So if we provide more than one area of space, then we would be making more than one contribution.
Yes. The resulting procedure from that, as I understand it, and I've been informed by the province, is we would let the financial agent of the anti-HST campaign know what facilities were used at which time and the approximate footprint, and it would be up to them to provide that calculation based upon a services in kind.
We would provide the calculation of how much, or they would?
We would provide the amount of space. They would determine what the local rate is in the area.
Okay, so I was going to ask you that question, but you really don't have that then? Or do you have a ballpark figure?
We don't. I think an example might be if we were to provide a certain amount of space here, the local competitors might be Henderson or Coquitlam Centre. I think the appropriate thing to do would be to let the financial agent know so that they have control over their own finances because they have a limit that they can spend, and whether that impacts the number of spaces they choose or the amount of time they choose to use that space is partly their determination.
Thank you. That's my only question to the amendment. I'll speak to the main motion after.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lynch. Councillor McDonnell?
I was just going to go along that line. I have no problem making any of the civic buildings available for this. However, I don't think that we need to be proactive and go out and search and assist them in locating different riding areas in Coquitlam. I think that anyone that's on this campaign knows that already, and I think they'd be appreciative of us making those facilities available.
Thank you, Councillor Reid.
I want to put a plug in here, never let a moment go. I would hope that you would look at the animal shelter because it's up in the riding that isn't here in another riding, and also look at the kitty cats because it's kitty season and we got a lot of them. So as you go up to sign your petition, go in and pick out the pet of your dreams. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Sikora.
Yeah. Thank the council members who will support this notice of motion. I think it's a very, very important notice of motion. Otherwise, I would never consider it. But there's been about 95% of the residents are asking me where can they sign on the HST. And I think we need to provide. I spoke on Saturday, we were at council meeting in Langley. I spoke to a Richmond councillor, and he said all our civic buildings are free of charge and open to the public to sign for or against the HST. Whether it be the city hall, whether it be the swimming pools, whether it be any other civic centers. So all their buildings are open, and he says you should see the lineup of people coming in to sign. It's frightening. So the fact is, and I know that, we say that the deal is done. It's not done, far from being done, because the public have a right to say. The public has a right to exercise their actions and their vote. And the fact is there's many things can be done. Matter of fact, I understand there's quite a few of the municipalities that have signed enough petition to recall their MLA. Now, how frightening is that? See, now to me would be very simple. If this HST is such a good thing, why doesn't the provincial government take 2 ads out in the paper in the province and assign a full-page ad and put down what is going to be included in the HST? They'd have to have probably the full provincial paper, province paper, or the Sun to list what's going to be included, who's going to be hit with HST. And if what is not going to be excluded, what's going to be excluded from HST, maybe one item. So they wouldn't have to have a full-page ad for that. But the fact is that, what bothers me, we as a community are promoting to have kids play hockey, play sports. The kids that can't afford it, there's other community groups that are helping them to buy the equipment and everything else. Everybody's coming to the table. Guess what? They're going to be hit with the HST. And I remember about 3 or 4 months ago, I heard the provincial government that somebody said, well, it'll hit me. Oh, we'll fix it. Somebody said, well, I'm going to be building a house. Oh, we'll fix it. I'm going to buy a car. We'll fix it. Well, if they're going to fix it, why bother having it? Why bother having it at all? But you know what the problem is? It's not what has happened with the HST. It's the arrogance of the government. Total arrogance of this government to go ahead and push things through that the general public, even, every walk of life, every political stripe is against it. But they are willing to shove it through. Doesn't matter at what cost or who's going to hurt, and they don't really care. So as far as I'm concerned, I think it's a good notice of motion, and I hope that the people do come out and register. I go to the Legion, they say to me, bring us some petition papers and we all want to sign. Go to a supermarket, they're saying the same thing. Go to the wine store, they say the same thing. Everywhere you go, everybody's complaining and everybody wants a sign. So I think it's a good notice of motion, and I know that also our mayor has been calling a couple of council members, throwing a fright into them. And where is he now to vote on this motion? No, he's out, but he did come for the previous notice of motion to say what he had to say. But now he's gone out.
Councillor Sikora, he's not here right now.
Yeah, that's right. But you know what? He did phone. Sorry, I know that the partners, voting partners usually don't like it. But the fact is, he did phone a couple council members and said to them, frightened them for seconding my motion and many other things, which is a no. Okay? And I'm bringing that up, and I'll always bring that up.
Thank you, Councillor Sikora.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to speak against the amendment. I'm coming from a different place. I think I'm probably the lone man out here, but I'm coming from the perspective that, and I'm not taking a side on the HST, I'm coming from a perspective, though, that it is a campaign-related activity. And so the current HST initiative falls under the scope of the Recall and Initiative Act and is administered by the Chief Electoral Officer for the province. So there's a regulatory framework that applies to this, and the questions I had are, is the proponent prepared to record contribution and file the appropriate paperwork, and will a proponent provide signs? So those are two questions I had, but my concern about doing this in all of our civic buildings is that it sets a precedent. And forgetting about the HST here for a moment, if we're talking about other campaigns as well, and it could be a campaign for anything, is this a precedent we want to set in our civic buildings by allowing these campaigns to take place within our buildings? Perhaps it is, but I see that as something that's holding back my support of this issue, so I'm not going to be supporting it. Councillor McDonnell, did you want to speak on the amendment?
To the main motion.
On the main motion? Okay, so that's all the speakers then for the amendment, I believe, and so we will vote on the amendment. Mr. Clerk, would you like to just repeat the amendment, please?
The amendment is currently in the first clause. It says that Coquitlam Council provide a space in the second floor lobby area of City Hall. The amendment proposed by Councillor Robinson is that we allow the use of all facilities for this purpose.
Okay, thank you. All in favor of the amendment? Opposed? I'm opposed. Thank you. So back to the main motion then, and we have Councillor McDonnell on the speakers list.
Thank you. I'm going to be supporting this motion. We live in a politically apathetic province, and the number of people, the huge, vast number of people that are out expressing their opinion on this, on the HST is it's to be encouraged, not necessarily because it's the HST, but it's this people speaking out and people getting involved and people that are engaging in the political process. And I think that has to be encouraged. And so I'm going to be very supportive of this.
Thank you. Councillor Lynch.
Well, I'm also supportive of this, and I recall, I guess it was about a week before Councillor Sikora brought this motion forward, and we were discussing, I had some concerns about the fact that we were using civic buildings and whether that was allowed. And we asked our staff to investigate this, and obviously this was anticipated in some respects because the Election BC has said it's permissible for a municipality to provide set space on its premises. So it's not like that we don't have the authority or the right to do this. It's been stated right in the Election BC Act. So I think that it's a good thing to do to provide a space. And I do have somewhat of concern about the fact that this is precedent, but not to the point where I'm prepared to say, no, I'm so worried about what precedent we're setting that we're not going to do this, because this is a political issue. And I think, again, as I said before, we have somewhat a responsibility to allow our residents to give feedback, not just to us, but to other levels of government. And I think this is the right way to go about it.
Thank you, Councillor Lynch. Seeing no more speakers, all in favor of the motion? Opposed? I'm opposed. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If you can just give me a brief moment to get back to item 4.5, I will resume the regular agenda. Item 4.5 concerns a preliminary report on a citywide official community plan amendment bylaw 4113 and a rezoning amendment bylaw 4114 relates to 1310 Coast Meridian Road and its related applications. The recommendation from the Land Use and Economic Development Standing Committee is that Council give first reading to Bylaw 4113, that Council give first reading to City of Coquitlam Zoning Amendment Bylaw 4114, and that Bylaws 4113 and 4114 and their related applications be referred to public hearing.
Moved by Councillor Reid, seconded by Councillor Robinson. Councillor Asmundson.
I'm not going to be supporting moving this through. It's presently zoned, and it was new zoning for 10 single-family lots. You have single-family lots already built on David Avenue beside this. You have above that single-family housing zoned in that area already. It doesn't fit. You also have the main roadway going up, which is a 10-meter roadway, which is a very narrow roadway, which you'd have to have no parking on one side. Having those 20 units down there would cause a lot of traffic issues. So there's a lot of issues around this one that I can't support moving this forward, and this is changing what I think a lot of the people there feel is the vision that has been set already. So I can't support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sikora.
Yeah, thank you. I will not be supporting it also. The fact is that, you know what, the ink is not even dry on the community plan map that describes this piece of property. We're already changing the community plan map for this area. The fact is that, you know, it's a corner. It's had 10 single-family lots. It's now, you know, there's too many things are happening. Somebody sells this land. All of a sudden, a buyer comes on, and he says, how can I make it work? I paid a big price for this land. How can I make it work? Well, we can put double the residents on there to make it financially viable. And this is what the council members have to weigh out and deal with. That the fact is that, you know what, we're prostituting ourselves. In this case, the fact is to make it work for some developer. And then, not only that, they have to go through other pieces of property to the north to get access to the place. Whether the people like it or not, this is what it's going to be, the properties to the north of it. Now, how can we vote for something that affects other pieces of property, not only this piece of property, but other pieces of property that don't like what's happening? And that area there's a creek running by it, and to jam it up with 20 townhouses, it just doesn't make any sense. Why wasn't it in the community plan map in the first place for 20 residences? Why was it only 10 lots? Now it's jumped up to 20. And I cannot support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Reid.
Thank you. When this came to land use, we asked all those questions, and there was no apparent answer why it wasn't in the community plan map in the first place, because it's at the corner of a major intersection, David and Coast Meridian. It's separated from the townhouses and the big pie-shaped lots at the back by the creek and by the setbacks. And just because the corner is townhouse doesn't mean that it's going to be townhouse all the way up the north. I think this provides a really good buffer for the other homes that are in behind it, and there won't be any access that will, bother any of the homeowners. And I think it's quite a nice little development to sort of buffer off the corner of the residential that's in behind it. And we are keeping a running tab on the number of units that are going up, that some people have more, some people have less, and we are keeping that running tab in Burke Mountain. And I asked for a report, and I assume that will be coming forward on Monday. So thank you. I will be supporting this.
That's great. Thank you. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. I'm supporting it, and mostly because I went back to the Northeast Coquitlam area plan, and I thought, well, let's go back to sort of some of the basics. And because one of the questions that did come up was, why wasn't this considered street-oriented townhomes to begin with? And I just want to highlight one of the major components of the overall development concept include having walkable areas so that residential land uses will be within a 10-minute walk of a village center. Well, across the street from this piece of land is going to be a development, a commercial development. And if we're really committed to getting people out of their cars and walking to do all those trips that actually clog the roads, then it makes sense to have higher density across the street, right by that commercial center. So from a planning perspective, it actually makes a whole lot of sense to have higher density at that major hub. It also, you know, if that higher density was deeper into that neighborhood, all those people then have to drive their cars through the neighborhood to get to the major nodes. Well, when all those people are right on the major nodes, I think it actually will have less impact. So I look forward to hearing from the public at a public hearing.
Thank you very much. I too will be supporting this application. I have requested from staff a copy of the OCP that was originally passed and the copy of the one that we'll be looking at. I live up on the Westwood Plateau, and I see where our density is located up there, which is right around the Westwood Village Shopping Center. And so I therefore think that up there in the northeast on this major corner that this would be an appropriate location for density as well. I do have concerns about the traffic through the neighborhood, and I'm hoping maybe that some staff can do some further work on that, but I certainly support sending this to public hearing, and I'll be looking forward to hearing back from the public on this. Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Seeing none. All in favor? Opposed? Carries. Thank you. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 5 is the minutes of the Engineering, Utilities and Environment Standing Committee meeting of Monday, April 26th. The recommendations to receive those minutes.
Moved by Councillor Robinson, seconded by Councillor Asmundson. All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
The first item of business arising out of those minutes concerns the Tide Place Local Area Service Construction Bylaw 4115. The recommendations to Council give first, second, and third readings to Tide Place Local Area Service Bylaw 4115.
Moved by Councillor McDonnell, seconded by Councillor Lynch. All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Second item concerns street and traffic bylaw amendment for the removal of truck time restrictions on Coast Meridian Road from Victoria Drive to David Avenue and on David Avenue from Pipeline Road to Coast Meridian Road. Recommendations that Council give first, second, and third readings to street and traffic amendment bylaw 4111 to remove truck travel time restrictions on Coast Meridian Road between Victoria Drive and David Avenue and on David Avenue between Coast Meridian and Pipeline Roads. Second, request TransLink Board of Directors to review unrestricted trucks access on the MRN segments traversing densely residential areas.
Moved by Councillor Robinson. Seconded Councillor Reid. Any speakers on this item? Councillor Reid.
Thank you. My question is, we've removed the time restrictions to get truck travel time, off, going over to some of the new developments up Burkway, but you haven't removed any truck time restrictions off Pipeline Road where all the gravel and stuff come from, and so it doesn't make, are they just going to wait until the time and they can come out and then they all go like it?
Mr. Suzak?
Sure. Madam Chair, the purpose of the report really is to abide by TransLink's funding requirements for major road networks. They require unrestricted truck movements for major road network elements that they fund for operations and maintenance. Coquitlam has sole control and custody, if you will, of Pipeline Road. And that really is our control in terms of dealing with livability issues. Gravel trucks will not be able to access David or Coast Meridian, even though we are removing restrictions.
So if it's MRN, then there can't be any restrictions?
That is correct as a condition of funding.
All I need to know. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carries unanimously.
Item 6 is the minutes of the Recreation, Sports and Culture Standing Committee meeting of Monday, April 26. Recommendations to receive those minutes.
Moved by Councillor Asmundson, second by Councillor Lynch. All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
First item of business, 6.2, concerns the Cultural Services Strategic Plan. The recommendation from the committee is that Council adopt the Cultural Services Strategic Plan 2010 to 2020.
Move recommendation.
Second.
Moved by Councillor McDonnell, seconded by Councillor Robinson. Councillor Robinson.
Actually, it's for the next item, sorry.
Oh, it's for the next item? Okay. Are there any speakers on this particular item, on the Cultural Services Strategic Plan? No, seeing none. All in favor? Opposed? Carries unanimously.
Next item, item 6.3, concerns the Cultural Advisory Committee. The four-part recommendation from the committee is that Council approve the formation of a Cultural Advisory Committee based on the terms of reference as amended and timelines as outlined in the staff report, that Council members be appointed from the Recreation, Sports and Culture Standing Committee to the new Advisory Committee, that 2 Council members of the Recreation, Sports and Culture Standing Committee act as Chair and Vice Chair of the new Advisory Committee, and second, that staff be directed to bring forward a request for $20,000 as part of the 2011 operating budget submission.
Moved by Councillor Robinson.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor McDonnell. Thank you. Councillor McDonnell.
Thank you. You know, we have a diverse and active and vibrant arts and culture community in Coquitlam. We're very lucky about that. This council is an opportunity to get the arts and cultural community together to advance their programs, and it'll help strengthen these groups. The real winner, of course, in this will be the city of Coquitlam, as the intent of this is to bring our arts and culture community to the forefront and to celebrate the diverse and the diverse nature of all our active groups out there. So a lot of work has gone into this by our staff. I commend them wholeheartedly. They've put a lot of work into this, and I think this is going to be very good for our city.
Thank you. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. What pleases me about this is the model. I think it's a good model for engaging citizens in a meaningful way. And what I'd like to have happen is an opportunity to hear back from the groups that sit on this committee, some sort of feedback mechanism that we can get back as council, perhaps 6 months or a year into this council. How's it working for them from a process perspective? Not so much. This is where I'm going to let go of some outcome. One of the outcomes is, is this group coming together and recognizing that they can support each other, and that by working together they can actually accomplish more in our community. So I'd really like to have an opportunity to hear back, because I'd like to see us use this as a model for other committees, other councils that we may form in the future. I think it's really important that we get as much learning and as much information back from the process. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much. I too fully support this. I think it'll be an excellent opportunity for the city, and I look forward to having it under operation. All those in favor? Opposed? Carries unanimously. Thank you.
Item 6.4 concerns commercial opportunities on city land. The recommendation from the Standing Committee is that Council approve the process outlined in the report of the General Manager of Leisure and Park Services and Strategic Initiatives to be followed in the development of commercial opportunities on city lands, and that staff be directed to use this process to seek opportunities for a destination restaurant on city-owned lands in the city centre, including Town Centre Park.
Moved by Councillor McDonnell, seconded by Councillor Lynch. Councillor Lynch.
Well, I think this is just great. I wholly support this. For a long time, I've talked to some residents, and they've simply said that they don't understand why in Coquitlam we don't have such a thing as like a destination restaurant when other municipalities, neighboring municipalities, are able to attract various types of restaurants. And I think that sometimes the city needs to take the lead on this and get the ball rolling. And I think it's a really good report, and I'm looking forward to see what opportunities that staff are able to identify for us in the future.
Thank you. Councillor Reid.
Thank you. I, too, am really pleased to see this. One of the things, though, I brought up at committee and got an answer, but not one that made me a really happy camper, was the fact that we have just built a beautiful facility up on Poirier. We're not looking for a full-service restaurant in there, and I think that that is not a wise move. So I'm hoping that you're going to get thousands of restaurateurs coming to Coquitlam to look at town centre, but however, some of them may like to be up on the hill. So I urge staff not to forget that we do have that brand new gem up there, and I hope we would look forward to putting a full-service restaurant in. Thank you.
Thank you. I too support this wholeheartedly. We have a beautiful town center area with Lafarge Lake there, and I can think of nothing better than a destination restaurant somewhere on those grounds. So I will fully support this. Thank you. Are there any other speakers on the item? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Thank you.
Item 6.5 concerns Spirit Square programming plan. The recommendation from the Standing Committee is that Council endorse the programming plan for 2010 and that Council allocate $40,000 from the Celebrate Coquitlam project to support the Spirit Square programming for 2010.
Moved by Councillor McDonnell, seconded by Councillor Asmundson. Councillor Sikora.
Yeah, thank you very much. You know, this Spirit Square is climbing in price and in money to make a celebration. The fact is that, you know, I, for one, as a council member, voted for $1.6 million in expenditures for Spirit Square. Lo and behold, a few months later, we find out that it's $2.75 million. Now, I don't know what happened to the extra $800,000, $900,000. The fact is that apparently the staff in the city hall hired engineers and many other people, and, you know, I mean, I guess it had to be done. But the fact is that nowhere was anybody warning the council members that this project will be $2.7 million. I don't think any of the council members, and I'll ask the council members, if anybody knew that it was going to be 2.75 instead of 1.6, put up your hand. And I don't think there's one council member that's aware that this thing is climbing to 2.75. Now we got another $400,000 or $40,000. When is this going to stop? I know this is for a celebration, but it must be a very wild celebration for $40,000 worth. So, you know, I'm just wondering. I didn't know it was going to be 2.7 million, and just keeps going. Yeah. So, I'd like to ask a few more questions, but however, it's before us.
Thank you, Councillor Sikora. Would staff like to address that?
Yes, General Manager is here to address that. There was a previous report that outlined all that, but General Manager can address that.
Yes, Council has received a number of reports with respect to Spirit Square, the development of the park. I can confirm that the park is being delivered within the approved budget that was established by Council. In fact, we will be bringing forward in the near future an update on that project because we do have a little bit of savings that we have identified, and so there are still a few choices that Council can deliberate on. But the project has come within the approved budget.
Thank you, Ms. McKay. Councillor McDonnell.
Thank you. Well, Coquitlam is finally moving from a sleepy suburban community to an active city, and the progress is too fast for some, and it's not fast enough for others. Looking at the ideas and the projections for entertainment at the Spirit Square, I'm pretty excited to see that a lot of the programming will be city-oriented. We have great community groups. We've got Coastal Sound, which will sound really great there, I think. We've got tremendous artists in our community that can show off their works. And it's going to be a square that the city can gather. And it's a process, I think, that every city goes through. Coquitlam's going through it now. We have a city square, and I'm looking forward to the programming that our staff is putting forward. So I heartily endorse this.
Thank you. Just a quick question through to staff. The $40,000 that we're applying for programming for 2010, that's a wash because we're using money from the torch relay function that we held. Is that correct?
That's correct. The source of money is from savings from a previous approved program.
Right.
The Celebrate Coquitlam program.
Right, and then we'll be re-examining the cost of programming for future years and approving it at that time.
That is correct. We're utilizing the $40,000 of savings in the operating budget on a one-time only basis for this trial program, and any future funding will be subject to decisions that Council makes during the budget process for 2011.
Great, thank you. Councillor Lynch.
Well, I'm glad to see this come forward. We always knew that when we did the Spirit Square, we were going to be doing some programming, so the idea that we're going to allocate some funding for it is not a surprise. My question has to do with the provision of the facilities to provide washroom services and using through Glen Pine in the library, which I guess I hadn't given that a whole lot of thought, how much of an impact that's going to have on those two public facilities. So how does that impact the hours, and what are we going to do as far as the impact on the facilities?
Ms. McKay?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We've consulted with the library and our staff at Glen Pine in terms of the development of this program, and they understand their role in supporting citizens' participation in activities in the square, and those washroom facilities will be available for the times that have been outlined in this draft program.
And how about the washroom facilities in this building? Will they be available at any point, or how does that work?
The washrooms in City Hall will be used as they are now for any visitors to the hall. With increased traffic in the city centre, we can expect there may be increased traffic into City Hall, but that can be absorbed within our regular operating procedures.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much. Seeing no more speakers, all in favour? Opposed? Carries unanimously. Mr. Clerk?
Item 7 is the minutes of the Strategic Priorities Administration and Protective Services Standing Committee meeting of April 26th. The recommendation is to receive those minutes.
Moved by Councillor Lynch, seconded by Councillor Robinson. All in favour? Opposed? Carries.
Item 8 is a fourth and final reading of a bylaw. This bylaw is the Smoking Control Bylaw, amending bylaw number 4108. The recommendation is that Council give consideration of fourth and final reading of Smoking Control Bylaw, amending bylaw 4108.
Moved by Councillor Lee, seconded by Councillor Robinson. Councillor Robinson.
I just had a question. We were just talking about Spirit Square. Is Spirit Square considered a park?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Yes, Spirit Square is a park.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Reid.
Thank you. Now that this, I believe, has passed, I would hope that we can get this out to some of the schools, specifically the ones around Hoy Creek, because it's just one giant ashtray for the two schools there, and that would be much appreciated. Thank you.
Can staff just answer what we're doing with respect to that?
Madam Chair, an important part of the success of this program is the public education campaign to support that, and that will include signage in park areas, and certainly we will be focusing on school park interface areas where we know that population does migrate back and forth. Our intention is to educate the full range of our population on the new bylaw and good civic engagement and behavior.
Thank you very much. Councillor Sikora.
Thank you very much. This bylaw it's a bylaw that I think, everybody should quit smoking. And I agree with that. I have no problem with that. I used to smoke 3 packages a day till 1972, and I quit smoking, which was certainly better for my health and everything else. But however, there's people that will smoke, and to say that all the parks in the city of Coquitlam be banned from smoking in parks, how are you going to enforce it? That's a question that I've always asked and always will. We have off-leash dogs running around in Mundy Park. We want that enforced. We want smoking in all parks. Who's going to go up to the water reservoir and say, you're smoking, you shouldn't be smoking, and write a ticket? There's nobody. There's our few bylaw enforcement officers that we have. So what are you going to do, send a policeman there? You know what they'll tell you? We're too busy. We got other things, more important things to do. And you sell the fire department there? No. They're busy too. So, you know, you know what? I'm not condemning the bylaw, but I think it's a bylaw that cannot be enforced. So, you know what? Say, oh, we have a bylaw in the city of Coquitlam, no smoking in the parks, no smoking here and there, and it's just wonderful. Sounds wonderful, but it cannot be enforced. So why put a bylaw that cannot be enforced? That's all I'm saying. So I can't support this. It's a bylaw that probably warrants supporting, but how can you support it if it cannot be enforced?
Thank you, Councillor Sikora. Seeing no further speakers, all in favor? Opposed? Councillor Sikora is opposed. Thank you. Mr. Clerk.
Item 9 is the report of the General Manager and Planning Development concerning amendment to Bylaw 4106, zoning bylaw text amendment to the RM2, RM3 apartment zones, the RT2 townhouse zone, and related definitions. The recommendations that Council consider amending bylaw number 4106 by removing the proposed changes to the RT2 townhouse zone. Give second, third, fourth, and final readings to amended City of Coquitlam zoning amendment bylaw 4106. Staff be directed to provide follow-up answers to the questions raised by the public in regards to the RT2 townhouse zone, the RT3 townhouse zone. And 4, direct staff to prepare a new RT2 townhouse zoning text amendment bylaw for Council's further consideration.
Moved by Councillor Osmondson. Seconded by Councillor Robinson. Are there any speakers or questions on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carries unanimously.
Item 10 concerns the 2010 annual tax rates bylaw. It's bylaw number 4112. The recommendations that the City of Coquitlam 2010 annual tax rates bylaw 4112 be given first 3 readings.
Moved by Councillor Reid, second by Councillor Asmundson. Councillor Sikora.
Thank you very much. Okay, up here in the background it says that our tax rate was 4.96%, when in fact it's 5.26%. And correct me if I'm wrong. The fact is it's 4.96 if there was no rebate to or breaks for the businesses. We gave the businesses a break in the taxes this year and put it on the residential property. So then the residential property went up to 5.26. Am I correct?
Ms. McLeod?
The average tax increase was 4.96 across all properties, but we did do the annual tax shift, which redistributes a little bit of the tax burden from commercial properties to residential, which resulted in 4.53 for commercial and 5.28 for residential.
Yeah, so in other words, the residential taxes went up as a result of a break for the commercial.
Absolutely.
Well, then I think that what we're misleading the public, they're putting 4.96% when it's in fact 5-point-some-odd%. I think it would be much better if the facts and figures were correct. Thank you very much.
Ms. McLeod, did you want to address that or not?
Actually, those tax rates are included in the report on the second page.
Thank you. Seeing no other speakers, all those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Sikora is opposed.
Item 11 concerns QNet's third trimester report for 2009. Recommendations that Council receive the report from the Deputy City Manager on behalf of the QNet Board of Directors entitled QNet Third Trimester Report 2009 for information.
Moved by Councillor Asmundson. Seconded by Councillor McDonnell. Councillor Sikora.
Yeah, thank you very much. This QNet, what happened here, in 2008 or 2007, we borrowed $5 million for this QNet for the city. And since then, we haven't made a dime. We've been losing money right along. And the fact is that it says that in 2013, if I'm reading it correctly, that it may start making money or break even. Okay, so we're going to be 5 years at losing money on $5 million. What is the rate of money right now? About 2-3% we'd be getting interest if it was in a bank?
Ms. McLeod?
Current interest rates are considerably lower than that. They're closer to 1% right at the moment.
Okay. Now, fact is, if it is going to lose money till 2013, and it's going to break even 2013, with that 2013, we'll write off, in that 2013, we'll be able to gain that money that we lost in interest, plus show a break even?
The original business plan for QNet involved an investment of approximately $5 million that would be invested until 2013, and over a period of a few years, we would recoup that investment and then begin to make money in the future. And that would include the opportunity cost of all the money invested.
So to me, I don't know, we said that inside of 25 years we'd hope to repay that $5 million in 25 years. To me, that's a pretty bad investment as far as I'm concerned, and I don't know what the profit is going to be in 2013 that we're taking a wild guess at, but I'd like to know what the guess would be that we'd be making money in 2013. That's 5 years later. What kind of profit do you estimate we're going to make at 2013?
I'm sorry, I don't have that information at my fingertips. I believe that the original business plan predicted that we would break even in 2013, and over the course of I think it was a 20-year term that we looked at the investment, it would make considerable amount of money for the city in the future.
Yeah, to me, that you take $5 million. I'm a businessman. I invest into bonds or whatever it may be, or the bank. 15 years later, that money doubles. Okay, so now I got $10 million. In here, we borrow $5 million, or we give them $5 million, and we might start making money or get the money back in 25 years. That doesn't make sense to me, with spending $5 million for 25 years and to make $5 million at the end of 25 years. It just doesn't add up.
The original business plan included making quite a bit more money than just recovering our costs. We were going to recover the $5 million, I believe, in approximately 2013, and we were going to make a considerable amount of money to invest in the city in other ways over the following 20 years after that.
If I could just add on to that, the business plan for QNet involved some economic development drivers, and we believe that this will be a viable economic investment, and that the original loan will be fully paid back with interest. But one of the big benefits to the community is twofold: to attract businesses to Coquitlam which need high fiber optic capability, which would not otherwise have invested here. That's the first case. But then secondly, there's all sorts of communities that are having real problems with different kinds of telecos digging up city streets. And there's a lot of lost resources with respect to degradation of those city streets. We are very pleased that because we have fiber optic capability within Coquitlam, that those same companies, the incentive will be simply to sign on to QNet, not dig up our streets, and there is an added benefit to that. So there's many different benefits to this initiative, and Council in the past has fully supported it. We are on track with the business plan, and we believe the loan will be fully repaid.
Thank you, Mr. Steplin. I appreciate that.
And the fact is that, there's all kinds of figures being bandied around, and that's fine, I mean, to try and build something for the community as far as new business is concerned, I'm all for it. But the fact is, what? Who knows in 25 years what the systems are going to be that are going to be used? Is it going to be a 747 that's going to be way up in the air and gave the same service as what we spent $5 million for? Probably yes. Probably many, many other things might happen. So we may be obsolete in 25 years. But also it says interest bearing at 1.77% and has no set terms of repayment. Now, that means that he's got no set terms of repayment. He's going to be repaid $500 a year, $1,000 a year. It's in your own handwriting here or typed, and that's the way it is. And that's the thing I'm questioning. I'm not saying that, you know what, you don't want to bring new businesses into the city and that type of deal. I'm all for it. Of course we need to bring new businesses into the city. And I don't know how much this QNet will bring new businesses into the city, because people that have been signing on to this QNet, it's been government people like the school board, and we don't know whether they're going to get the money from, too, because, you know, their budget is now some like $18 million short or whatever it is. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sikora. Seeing no more speakers, all in favor? Opposed? Councillor Sikora is opposed. Thank you. Mr. Clerk.
Item 12 concerns bylaw notice enforcement bylaw amending bylaw 4117. The recommendation is that Council give first, second, and third readings to bylaw notice enforcement bylaw amending bylaw 4117.
Moved by Councillor McDonnell, seconded by Councillor Lynch. All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Madam Chair, we have previously disposed of items 13 and 14, so I will move to item 15 on the agenda at this time.
Thank you.
Item 15 is the Metro Vancouver Board and Brief. The recommendation is that Council receive for information the Metro Vancouver Board and Brief.
Moved by Councillor Lynch, seconded by Councillor Asmundson. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Madam Chair, that's the last item on this evening's agenda.
Moved by Councillor Asmundson, seconded by Councillor Reid. Oh, around the table, sorry.
I just wanted to inform Council that our Library Director, Rianne Pipperl, was awarded the Achievement in Library Service Award this last month at the Library Conference in Penticton. It's an award that recognizes an individual who has made substantial contribution in librarianship in British Columbia and has moved library service forward in the province. And she was honored for her Books for BC Babies program, which began in November 2004, and I think we all ought to be very proud and grateful that we have Rianne as our library director.
That's fabulous. Thank you very much, and congratulations to Rianne, and I understand she's also going to be a Rotary president soon. Thank you. Is there anything else? Seeing nothing, motion to adjourn. Asmundson, second by Councillor Lynch, all in favor. Good evening, everybody. Thank you.